Many people pass right by their blessings, not because they cannot see, but because they've been taught to notice only what shines on the surface. When the universe sends its gifts, they rarely appear as showers of gold or the roar of applause. They come gently, almost imperceptibly, a faint change in the air, a quiet stirring in your heart. Yet in a world addicted to noise, that softness is easily overlooked, and when blessings go unseen, they begin to slip away, not because the universe has stopped giving, but because miracles require awareness to take root. If you cannot honor what is already present, how will you ever recognize the greater things on their way? You've been waiting for confirmation, for evidence that you're favored, but what if the signs have already begun? What if your longing, your restlessness, the quiet whispers in your soul are not signs of lack, but signs that something divine is already unfolding within you? When the universe blesses you, it sends signals, unmistakable ones, not just to inform you, but to transform you. And once you begin to see them, your whole life starts to shift in ways that are impossible to ignore. The first sign that the universe is beginning to bless you often arrives disguised as isolation. People drift away, conversations grow shallow, invitations stop coming. At first, it may feel like abandonment, like life is shrinking around you just when you expected it to expand. But this withdrawal is no accident. It's a sacred separation. The universe doesn't isolate you to punish you, it isolates you to prepare you. Just as a caterpillar disappears into a cocoon before becoming a butterfly, you are being pulled inward so that transformation can begin quietly, away from distraction, away from noise. Within this solitude lies a divine recalibration. Old energies are being stripped away to make room for new ones. The relationships that fall apart, the communities that no longer feel like home, they're all part of the refinement. You may start to question yourself, wondering why nothing feels the same, why you can't seem to connect like you used to. But what you're really experiencing is an energetic shedding. The universe is removing what can't go with you into your next chapter. The connections that once made sense now feel foreign, not because you've become cold, but because your frequency has changed. Isolation creates space, and in that space, your own voice begins to rise. Not the one shaped by society or influenced by others' expectations, but the voice of your soul. It's there that clarity starts to bloom. Where once you were distracted by the demands and opinions of others, now you begin to see your own reflection without distortion. Like a mirror wiped clean, the truth of who you are and what you're here to do becomes clearer. The absence of people becomes the presence of purpose. Those who fear solitude often fear the truth that comes with it. Yet, the universe uses quiet seasons to reveal loud truths. It's in the silence that you realize how much of your identity was built on noise. And as that noise fades, you come face to face with what's real, your values, your calling, your alignment. The solitude you thought was a setback becomes the very setting where you discover your strength. In ancient traditions, elevation always required separation. Prophets went to mountaintops, sages to forests, visionaries into caves. Before the divine could use them, they had to be alone with their becoming. The same principle still applies. You are not being excluded. You are being extracted from the ordinary to make way for the extraordinary. The loneliness you feel is not emptiness. It's sacred space, preparing to be filled with purpose. Eventually, the silence becomes sacred. What once felt like isolation now feels like insulation. You realize you were never truly alone. You were just being pulled away to be rebuilt. When the universe blesses you, it doesn't start with applause. It starts with absence. Because only in the stillness can you hear the signal of transformation. And once that signal becomes clear, everything changes. Not outside of you, but within you. That is where the elevation begins. Following the quiet of isolation, many expect an immediate breakthrough, a reward, a sign that things are finally falling into place. But what often comes next is delay. It feels as though life is standing still. Goals stall, progress halts, prayers echo without response. In these moments, doubt creeps in. You begin to wonder if the blessings you've been hoping for will ever arrive. But delay is not the absence of movement. It is the perfection of timing. The universe does not operate on urgency. It moves with intention. What appears as waiting is actually weaving, a careful orchestration of events that must align before your breakthrough can manifest. Much like a symphony needs every instrument tuned before the music begins, your life needs preparation before your moment arrives. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, sees connections and consequences that you cannot. While you focus on what is late, it focuses on what is lasting. Every delay is a refinement of your readiness. You may be willing, but there are still layers being shaped within you. The people you need to meet, the skills you must develop, the habits that still require pruning, these are all part of the silent process happening behind the veil. In seasons of waiting, your patience is not just tested, it is built. And patience isn't weakness. It's one of the strongest spiritual muscles. It teaches you to hold space for what is forming without collapsing under doubt. As you wait, you start to recognize that what's coming is not simply an answer to a request. It's a reflection of who you are becoming. If the blessing arrives too early, it will crush you. If it arrives on time, it will carry you. The difference lies in your willingness to trust the unseen rhythm of divine timing. There's a passage in ancient scripture that reads, "Though it tarries, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay." This paradox holds deep truth. From the human perspective, delay feels cruel, but from the divine perspective, it's a safeguard. You are being preserved. A detour may be blocking danger. A closed door may be protecting you from a path you were never meant to walk. The universe does not withhold what is rightfully yours. It withholds what is not yet right for you. Often the frustration in the waiting comes from misalignment with trust. The mind demands certainty, but the soul thrives on surrender. You're not asked to figure it all out. You're asked to remain open, to believe without evidence, to prepare as if the blessing is already en route. The farmer does not doubt the seed simply because the sprout is not visible. He trusts the soil. And in the same way, you are asked to trust that what's planted in your life is growing beneath the surface. When the moment finally arrives, when the door opens, when the opportunity calls, when the blessing appears, you will feel it in your bones. There will be no forcing, no pushing, no desperate grasping. The timing will feel precise, not pressured. And everything you endured in the delay will suddenly make sense. The character you built, the strength you gathered, the clarity you gained, all of it will reveal its purpose. Divine timing is not just about arrival, it's about alignment. The blessing doesn't just come to you, it meets the version of you that's ready to carry it. So if you find yourself in a season of waiting, don't rush it, don't resent it, respect it. Because the universe never forgets what it promises. And when the moment is ripe, what is meant for you will arrive in a way that no one, not even you, could deny. There comes a moment on the path of divine blessing when the weight of old attachments becomes too heavy to carry forward. You begin to sense it, not as a loud warning, but as a subtle discomfort. What once felt necessary now feels burdensome. The universe starts nudging you towards surrender, not because it wants to deprive you, but because it wants to make room. The process of letting go is not about loss, it is the creation of sacred space. Until the hand is emptied, it cannot receive. And so, the release becomes a quiet but powerful invitation to ascend into alignment. Letting go isn't always about people or things. Sometimes it's about outdated dreams, old narratives, and internal beliefs that no longer reflect who you are becoming. The roles you've played, the expectations you've carried, the fears you've entertained, they served a purpose once, but now they act as ceilings over your potential. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, will not pour new blessings into a life cluttered with past limitations, so it stirs the discomfort, the restlessness, the inner knowing that you cannot grow and grip the past at the same time. At first, the act of releasing may feel like falling, a kind of death. You might grieve the things you thought would last. You may question whether you're making a mistake. But detachment isn't about indifference, it's about trust. It's the belief that what is real will remain, and what departs was never meant to go further with you. Just as a tree sheds its leaves to survive the winter, so too must you shed what no longer feeds your soul. And just like the tree, what falls away is not the end, but the beginning of renewal. Detachment gives birth to power. No longer chained to specific outcomes, your spirit becomes light. You stop striving and start flowing. The desperation that once defined your prayers dissolves, replaced by quiet certainty. You don't beg blessings to arrive, you make space for them to land. This surrender becomes a signal to the universe that you are no longer operating from fear or control, but from faith. And in response, life begins to align. Opportunities come without force. Relationships form without manipulation. Doors open without knocking them down. There's an old parable that speaks to this. A man clings to a heavy bag while trying to board a small boat. The guide tells him, "You must drop it if you want to cross." The man hesitates, not knowing what's in the bag, but feels its weight. Eventually, he lets go, and the boat floats effortlessly. The bag, once thought essential, was the very thing keeping him stuck. So too in life. Often the things we cling to most tightly are the ones that block us from the very freedom we seek. Letting go, then, is not weakness. It is the highest act of alignment. Once the release has taken place, blessings begin to move, not always immediately, but undeniably. Peace fills the space that anxiety once occupied. Clarity rises where confusion once lingered. And what you feared to lose, you no longer miss. In fact, you realize that in letting go, you didn't lose anything real. You simply made space for what is true. You see, the universe never asks you to let go without preparing something greater to replace it. And when that greater thing arrives, you'll understand why the release was necessary. As the unnecessary begins to fall away, a new version of you starts to emerge, quietly, steadily, and unmistakably. Blessings from the universe are not always loud in their arrival, but they are deep in their effect. One of the clearest indicators of divine favor is the way you begin to transform on the inside. No longer driven solely by external achievements or validations, your motivations shift. Where you once sought control, you now embrace flow. Where you once needed certainty, you now cultivate trust. And where you once responded in fear, you now operate in love. This is not surface change, it is foundational. Character becomes the soil in which your blessings grow. As your external world may still be catching up, the internal landscape is already shifting dramatically. Qualities like patience, humility, and self-control begin to rise. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because they naturally grow in the space where ego has been dissolved. The noise inside quiets, the need to prove yourself fades, and in that space, a new kind of strength emerges, one that doesn't shout but stands firm. You become less reactive, more centered, less scattered, more anchored, and others begin to feel the difference, even if they can't name it. This inner elevation is not about perfection, it's about alignment. Alignment with values that reflect something higher than personal ambition. You start to love people without needing anything in return. You forgive more quickly, not because the other deserves it, but because peace is more important than pride. You listen deeper. You act with greater intention. Life no longer feels like a series of tasks to manage, but an unfolding purpose to live. You're no longer just existing. You're embodying the presence of something divine. This is how blessings begin to move through you, not just to you. Transformation also brings discernment. You no longer entertain every invitation or chase every opportunity. What once excited you may now feel empty, because your spirit no longer feeds on stimulation, it feeds on truth. You start choosing peace over attention, meaning over momentum, and connection over performance. The outer elevation, the career breakthroughs, the recognition, the abundance, these come naturally when the inner transformation is complete. But they are not the goal, they are the reflection. They mirror what's already been built within. So when life begins to reward you externally, take a closer look at who you've become internally. The elevation you experience outside is a shadow of the growth that has happened within. The universe does not promote someone simply because they are capable. It elevates those who are ready, those whose inner world can carry the weight of the blessing with grace, wisdom, and love. And when that readiness is achieved, your life begins to rise, not with noise, but with purpose. After the transformation settles within, the chasing stops, not because your dreams have vanished, but because your perspective has matured. One of the final signs that the universe is blessing you is the deep, steady current of fulfillment that begins to flow through your life. This fulfillment doesn't roar with excitement, it hums with contentment. The constant pressure to prove, to perform, to grasp for more fades into the background. You realize that everything you were seeking externally, peace, joy, validation, was already waiting to be cultivated from within. The soul no longer strains for recognition or applause. You no longer measure your worth by how much you've achieved or how fast you're moving. Instead, purpose begins to lead the way. Each day feels like it belongs to something greater than ambition. Whether you're in a moment of visibility or obscurity, gain or loss, you feel aligned. Fulfillment comes not from having everything, but from knowing that everything happening is part of a meaningful, divinely guided story. The striving that once exhausted you now feels unnecessary. You are no longer running towards something, you are living from something deeper. Service becomes a source of joy. Giving is no longer draining because it doesn't come from obligation. It comes from overflow. Your time, resources, and gifts begin to circulate outward, not because you lack boundaries, but because you recognize that true abundance flows through open hands. You no longer grip life tightly. You engage with it freely, generously, intentionally. There is no scarcity in your mindset because you've learned that everything you truly need comes to you in perfect rhythm. This way of being doesn't shout success, it embodies it. And in that space, you find what people spend entire lifetimes chasing, a sense of enoughness. Not because the world gave you everything you asked for, but because the universe gave you something better, a life in harmony with your soul. When fulfillment replaces striving, you are no longer just surviving or performing, you are being, fully. And in that being, you recognize the final and most sacred sign, that you are already living in the blessing you once begged for. When the universe blesses you, it rarely begins with fanfare. The signs are often subtle, even disorienting at first. Loneliness, delays, inner shifts, surrender, and quiet contentment. But when seen through spiritual eyes, these are not random disruptions. They are sacred markers. Each one signals that something greater is unfolding, not just around you, but within you. Blessing is not about accumulation, it is about alignment. And as alignment deepens, what once felt like struggle transforms into purpose. What once looked like loss reveals itself as liberation. What once felt delayed arrives with divine precision. All along, the universe has been moving, not just to give you something, but to make you someone. You were never being punished in your waiting, never forgotten in your solitude, never overlooked in your letting go. Every shift, every silence, every stretch of your soul was a deliberate part of your preparation. And now you begin to see with new eyes. Doors open without force, peace rises without explanation, joy finds you without reason. This is the evidence, not of chance but of blessing, real, lasting, undeniable. The most powerful sign of all is this: you no longer chase what you once thought you needed, because you have become what you were always meant to be, whole, rooted, fulfilled, The universe has not only answered your silent prayers, it has transformed you into someone who no longer needs to ask in desperation, but who now walks in quiet, radiant trust. And that, above all else, is how you'll know you are blessed.